TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app. Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it is that time for the Breakfast Bankroll with Brady Kannon. And today, Paul Stone. Yes, he's usually here on Thursday, but it's Thanksgiving on Thursday. We figured everyone deserves the day off. Why not watch some football, have a few plates of turkey and all that other good stuff, and then why worry about shows when we can do them today and Friday? So first and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsor and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play. Download that app. It is free. Viva Tequila Seltzer. New flavor, lemon. Lemon in the house. So now they added coconut this summer. Now lemon, a fresh 6-pack now with Viva. Go try one wherever you have your adult beverages. And last but not least, of course, it is Atlanta Steaks and Seafood. Jump on over to Facebook. Introduce yourself to Terry Smith, with a lot of people that have been watching our shows have done. I was reaching out to Terry just the other day. How you doing, Terry? You going to come on this week? Jeff, too busy filling these turkey orders. We're blessed. So head on over to AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Place an order today. You'll be grilling by probably Monday Night Football. So without further ado, let's bring him in. The one and only Mr. Brady Kannon.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving week to you, Mr. Dawson. A festive time of the year for sure. Thanksgiving's probably my favorite holiday, and I was speaking with my friend Kevin Walsh on Sports Grid on Tuesday. It reminds me of Labor Day, and not the holiday sense, but in the football sense. It's kind of like Labor Day, where you've got football going for about 5 days straight, and that's what we've got here again on Thanksgiving weekend and what have you. So and then we roll into, pretty soon we'll be in the NFL playoffs, the college football playoffs, all that good stuff. So yeah, football season really getting into a crunch time, the home stretch, if you will.
Before we dive into football and some contests and someone feeling really blob, and we'll get to that story, PGA, we talk how hard it is to hold the golden ticket. And again, whether it's 89 golfers at the Masters or 160 at the U.S. Open, how we visualize the board pre-flop, how we come across our data, and then how we attack it. 6-8 guys take our swing, and then we'll follow the live play. I talk about it very simply. Let's make the cut. Let's have a good moving day, and let's enjoy the Sunday sweats. Well, you, my friend, back to back runner-ups. and you sent me the text, and I said, Brady, take a bow. You should feel your eyes are sharper than sharp right now.
Oh man, I tell you, I wish it, also populated my bank account for a guy finishing second. And you know how it is this time of year, the fall swing. I dumb down the amount risked. I'm not playing top 10s and top 20s and not doing a whole lot of head-to-head matchups. That's all saved for January when football comes to a close and we flip the calendar and golf becomes priority number one. Then we dive a little deeper into all the plays that we're making. But yeah, tough to come that close and not have it, get paid, if you will. But at the same time, you're right. I mean, it's impressive to be that close. It's kind of like, gosh, it's a tough pill to swallow, and you can kind of see. I mean, let's see, Carson Young at Los Cabos, the Worldwide Technology, he was a 54-hole leader. Andrew Novak in Bermuda was a 54-hole leader. And I kind of hate to be the 54-hole leader because those guys typically don't, kick the door down in the end. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is on the PGA Tour, but I believe it's less than half of the 54-hole leaders actually go on to win. I love to have, it's like in the first round, I don't want to, unless I'm betting first round leader, I don't really want to have my guy in first place. And it's the same thing when you're heading into Sunday. I'd love to have him a shot off the lead or maybe 2 shots off the lead. But, when you, and especially these guys in this fall swing where most of them have never won before on the PGA Tour, boy, you talk about a guy like that sleeping on a 54-hole lead. Talk about being nervous, I mean, think if that was you and I, Jeff. I mean, I'd crumble like a paper towel. But, so, that's, I could kind of see the writing on the wall in a couple of those cases. And I mean, Carson Young goes out, he's a 54-hole leader, shoots a 65 on Sunday. Can't ask for much better than that. Got beaten by a 63. So, yeah, I mean, and Daniel Berger, we've been trying to find that spot with him. I think I've been on him 3 times. Maybe that was the 4th time. And it wasn't just during the fall. It was, during the regular PGA Tour season as well. There was a couple times where, and he's at big numbers, 80-1. We had him last week at 70-1. And I kept telling you, we've seen this guy be a top 15 player in the world before, pre-injury. I think he's going to find his way back. And boy, he almost did. So I just kept saying I wanted to time that right because he's going to win again one of these days. And I thought maybe we had it. But, congratulations to Maverick McNeely, a Las Vegas guy, lives here in town from the Bay Area, from Northern California, of course, went to Stanford. He's been at the grind a long time, similar to Berger, took a lot of time off for injury. This guy's career goes all the way back to probably, 8 years ago. When he was the number 1 amateur in the world, still hasn't ever won on the PGA Tour. Like I say, had to take that break because of injury, and he finally was able to get it done. So good for him as well. If anybody was going to win it, I was kind of happy to see it be him rather than one of my guys.
And I think the story, at least social media took to it, and I was pulling for him. And of course, that was Joel Damon. They had, Holden just needing, I think it was a 6-footer on 18 to get his card, and just the whole world off your shoulder. I know, I'm standing over a 6-footer for a $5 or $10 Nassau, and my knees are shaking. Never mind, a year of
literally $1 million putt, probably, right?
Exactly. So talk about Joel. Great weekend. Glad for Joel.
Yeah, absolutely. And Daniel Berger was right there as well. Henrik Norlander. Now, Damon, I believe he started the week at 124th in the standings, maybe 125th. He was right there. He was actually inside the window before he started, but good on him for maintaining that spot. Didn't lose any ground. And like you say, first of all, he had to make the cut. He was very emotional after he did that. And then, of course, was again after holding that putt that really secured his place in 2025 with his tour card. Henrik Norlander was another guy that I think went from 129 or 126, right? Obviously, you have to be 125 or better. He ended up finishing tied for 17th and moved inside. He was on the good side of the fence there. Berger was the other guy. He started 127. He moved to like 100th with the runner-up finish. And then, I'm trying to remember. There was a hard. Zach Blair. Zach Blair, who I think hails from Utah. Went the wrong way. He started out at like 123 or something like that, ended up missing the cut and finished like 126th or something in the standings. So, there was 3 or 4 guys that had it swing either way, and Zach Blair was the guy that, drew the short straw there.
One tournament left, Tigers Invitational, usually around 30 golfers. We had Scotty last year. Tiger made it known he will not be playing in that. We'll obviously have you on to break that down. My question to you is, it just, I know Scotty, I know there was some big stories in this year's PGA, the FedEx Cup, the Olympics. But give me one, two, three names, maybe coming down the stretch to keep an eye on. I talked to you a couple of weeks ago. Next year, maybe the Ricky Fowlers, the Justin Thomases. Are they back? Is there a name or a story that sticks out to you moving into 2025, Brady?
Well, I tell you, I think one of the most impressive seasons without really, I mean, obviously won a lot of money, had a lot of high place finishes, but did not get to the winner's circle. Colin Morikawa. You got to believe that guy is as hungry as ever, because last season, he hadn't won since the Zozo Championship, I believe in 2022. I can't, and prior to that, it was the Open Championship, I think, in 2021. And it really all turned for him at the Masters. And, I think he ended up finishing third and was right there like everybody else, put it in the water on 11. But, boy, he had a heck of a season and had a couple of battles with Scheffler down the stretch. And that guy is, I mean, to turn things around and still not kick the door down, he's got to be really chomping at the bit. I would think, he's probably going to come out exactly where he left off, I would think, in the new year. And no better place to bet on Colin Morikawa in recent history than Kapalua. So he might be a guy that, when we turn the calendar into 2025, I was on him a couple years ago when he had as much as like a 9-shot lead on Sunday and somehow let it slip away to John Rahm, who ended up winning the Century there at Kapalua in Maui. I mean, it seems like every golf bettor I know is on Morikawa and sings that same, trombone story there about Colin Morikawa, blowing that one. But he's had a tremendous track record at Kapalua, so he might be a guy to focus on right out of the gate in January. Justin Thomas seemed to be turning the corner, kind of slowly but surely. I mean, you go back to the year before where he missed out on the FedEx Cup playoffs, but was that close. And then he kind of turned it on in 2024, here and there. Was pretty darn good at the Zozo, almost had it, in the winner's column there, just couldn't hole a putt on Sunday. He's another guy that is obviously a world-class player that really hasn't had a win in a while, that you would expect more from in the near future. How about Victor Hovland? Remember how hot this guy was a couple of seasons ago in the FedEx Cup playoffs, and then it all went completely the other direction in 2024. You got to believe he's going to bounce back. I mean, we saw it for flashes, but then he would go south again. And I mean, obviously, Scotty was the dominant story. Wyndham Clark was hot for a second earlier in the year, and then as soon as he opened his mouth and started jabbering at the live guys at the Masters, and I'm glad it happened to him. That shows you, karma's a bitch, buddy. He did lousy the rest of the year, but he's too good of a player to be gone for any extended amount of time, I would think. And Scotty, you figure Scotty's going to be Scotty again. Now, to the level that he was last year, I don't know if he can get any better than that anytime too soon. I would think he'll be extremely steady. I would think he'll probably get multiple wins again in 2025. Is he going to get 8? I doubt it. But I would certainly expect 2 or 3. And, I mean, how can you not probably have a couple of bucks on him at the Masters again? So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to finally get to see all these guys once again. We got to see a few of them at the Zozo, but we'll see most of them just about a month or so, 6 weeks from now, when they tee it up in Maui at Kapalua for the Century.
Well, I can't wait for that, of course. I'm going to transition into, you'll be doing your show today, usually on Fridays, on the contest, the Circa contest, the Westgate contest. Before we break down some games this week and weekend, the Circa had an interesting story. 99 people left. One person didn't get their pick in,
Oh yeah,
and everyone's like wondering what. I mean, it was valued, I think, at around 150,000. Now they're
right.
over 200,000 there. But I want to take you to the Washington Dallas game because
Oh, brutal.
33 people had that, and there was a video out there with the gentleman at the Circa,
Yeah.
and they get the touchdown, and he's so you could see it on his face, and he did exactly what I did. Everyone there applauding, and he's like, "I got to make the extra
Got to make
point
the
here."
kick. Got to make the kick.
And there was one guy that walked up towards him like, like this, and I am there's no one more superstitious in the world than me. And I tell you right now, after that guy missed the kick, I would have called Derek and say, call security because I'm going to knock this bastard out right now.
I kind of knew. I kind of had the feeling he was going to miss it. And then when I saw the snap was not quite perfect, I said, "Here we go." And sure enough, he pulled it. And yeah, my good friend Tony Gordon, who actually won the Circus Sports Million, has a blue blazer in his closet. I thought maybe this guy was going to do the double dip and possibly, win Circus Survivor or at least chop it up with a number of other people. And he was on Washington. He had a long post on Twitter yesterday, just the emotional tax. But, in the end, he said, "Hey, it's great to be able to have the means to compete in these contests." And I mean, it was kind of deep. I've got my health, I've got my family, but it's just a game, right? But that's how much it weighs on you when 14.2 million is at stake. And you saw it in the emotion of that guy on that video. And there was another guy, I can't remember I've met him at Bet Bash, Plus EV Analytics or something like that on Twitter. He said, "This is why I don't play in Circus Survivor, because the emotional tax is like probably nothing you've ever dealt with before." And maybe it's true. And I understand his point. But hey, I'm going to still give it a shot, and I hope I'm in that. I hope I am in that cauldron. We talked about it on the Las Vegas Football Contest show that this is where the gauntlet begins. You've got games tomorrow that you have to pick a winner. Between tomorrow and Friday, then Christmas you've got 3 games where you have to pick a winner. There's 2 weeks of football. Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you've got to pick 4 winners because those days themselves, Thanksgiving and Christmas, are individual weeks in Circus Survivor. So it gets really hard right now, and it got really hard beginning last week. The Commanders were a death blow. I had them on a money line parlay for a couple bucks. I was nowhere near invested what these guys were, but it's. I mean, 11-point, 10-point favorite. You could have been betting Dallas, but did you expect Dallas to win the game outright? Just absolutely crazy, and I feel bad for those people that were on them. Adam and I, you, of course, have been a guest many times on our Saturday show. We wondered about the people picking Miami, because we kind of like New England catching 7 points, and we thought that game might be close. It wasn't. Turns out that was the right pick, and the Commanders weren't.
No, and as you said, the 3 games tomorrow, I think there's only 17 people alive on the Lions, which again, 11, 12-point favorite, whatever they are, it's a divisional game. The Packers came into Detroit last year, 7-point underdogs, and everyone saved the Lions there. And the Packers, it was Jordan Love's coming out party. So that one, it's, I know people with the Lions will probably save them. They're going to use them. The Dallas Giants game's a coin flip. I assume people with the Packers will feel a little more safer because you got the cold weather team the warm weather team coming in there. And then, of course, the Chiefs, again, double-digit favorites, which they're death by 10,000 paper cuts this year in their offensive scheme. They're winning. Patrick Mahomes is winning. But again, a Raider team that's got nothing other than, hey, let's knock these guys off here. And I would be more nervous, I think, with the Chiefs than I would the Lions. But divisional games, Brady, anything can happen in a divisional game.
That's right. That's as evidenced by last week with the Dallas Cowboys. And you had to figure Dan Quinn and that team had that game circled all year long with Dan Quinn, his former team, being the Cowboys, who crushed the Washington Commanders twice last season. I think the Lions have been taking care of business week in and week out. Why wouldn't they again? But, crazy stuff happens. I would feel pretty good about the Chiefs in this case, but you're right. It's kind of the Super Bowl for the Raiders. They lost to the Chiefs here in Las Vegas earlier this season by 7 points. I think the Raiders have probably regressed since that time. You just never know. When I was still involved in Circa Survivor way back when, the Packers were the game that I always had circled for this week because, like you said, Lambeau Field after week 10, the weather turns there in a hurry, and now you have a warm weather team going to Lambeau. I might feel the best about taking the Packers, and I know it's probably the most competitive matchup on the board. Certainly the point spread would tell you that. But maybe that's the one I'd prefer the most. Giants and the Cowboys, no thanks. We don't know what to make of the Giants right now. I think if Daniel Jones was still there and nothing had gone sideways in the last week with that organization, the Giants might be a favorite here. But all of that has changed. The Cowboys win, Jones is gone. So that one's really screwy. I just might stick to my original gut and take the Packers. Is Miami really going to go in there and win? It's not, you're looking at a 3-point spread versus double digits in the case of the Chiefs and the Lions, but boy, I don't know. It's hard. That's why I'm no longer around.
Well, it was funny. Lastly, is Gil had a gentleman on that was alive. He's got the Chiefs for Friday, and Gil was trying to be so polite about it. Let's assume the Chiefs win. What are you looking at Sunday? And I tell you this, no one would have had on your bingo card the Bills at home against the 49ers, which we don't know if Brock Purdy's going to come. So it was kind of cute there. I got about 5 minutes left here. You sent us a handful of games you wanted to talk about. I'm going to make it easier on you, Brady. I'm going to give you the stage now. You want to break down a handful of games that you got some leans on and what your eyes are seeing.
Well, I'll talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. I made the number 9. I mentioned that they beat the Raiders by 7 here in Las Vegas earlier this season. I don't think there's any home field advantage here in Las Vegas, unfortunately, but that's just the way it is. I think a lot of people probably knew that going in. You have, all kinds of visitors that come here to town and plan their weekend around their football team coming here, and nobody represents better than the Chiefs here at Allegiant Stadium, where they've never lost, including the Super Bowl. But now they go back to Arrowhead. I made the number 9. When I crunch all my stats, it comes to 7. You're just not quite sure what Raider team we have in front of us. But, it seems like we say this. If there was ever a spot where they were going to show up, you'd think it would be out of a bye week when they went into their bye having lost 5 straight. They used the bye to get things right, and they play the Miami Dolphins, and they don't come close to covering that game. And then they get crushed by the Broncos. I mean, you would think they have to put up effort against the Chiefs. So are the Chiefs going to win by 12 or 13? I don't see it. And if you bet against the Chiefs and the points every week, you're probably ahead of the game right now. Mm-hmm. We saw it last week in Carolina. So I would probably hold my nose and take the silver and black there on Friday. I mentioned the Giants and the Cowboys. My numbers come out to the Giants being favored. But again, a lot of that is with Jones. And honestly, I don't think there's a ton of difference between Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito. How many points is it? Are the Cowboys really a 3 or 4 point favorite? We've seen some activity already come towards the Giants. I made the number in favor of Dallas 2.5. And then when I crunch the stats, I come out with the Giants by roughly a 1.5 or 2 point favorite. But Dallas laying 4, I think we saw the market react to that. Hey, that's way too many. This is still the disaster Dallas Cowboys, even though they beat the Commanders last week. I just don't know if we really know what kind of disaster the Giants are. So I believe that one is very tough to deal with. The Chargers and the Falcons, I made the number 3. When I crunch the numbers, I come out with the Chargers 5.5. It opened up 1.5, and I was like, wow, what am I? And maybe it's, off of the short week, the emotional game with his brother. But Still, we've seen the market react there and kind of agree with me. We've seen that one move to 2 or 2.5 in favor of Los Angeles. The one that caught my eye, and I think we've only had this situation one other time this season, and I look for this situation every week, Jeff, and it's my favorite situational spot to go against a team. And that is a team that wins outright as a home underdog and then the next week gets cast into the role of road favorite. And that's what we have here with the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle won last week as a home underdog, albeit a very short dog, about 1.5 points, maybe 2 points at the most. They win that game outright over Arizona, and here they are as a road favorite at New York. Yes, I did it. I will admit I'm guilty. I bet the Jets. I already did it. I just have to do it on principle. That situation, I don't know what the latest numbers are, but over the course of history, that home underdog winning outright into the role of road favorite has lost in that role that next week. I want to say in the neighborhood of 65% of the time. It's a really high percentage. And it works out nicely as well for the Jets, who are coming out of a bye week and going into that bye week struggling. I like to bet on teams on the other side of their bye week when they go into that week struggling, because that gives them a chance to reset, correct what they've been doing wrong. I like to go against teams that go into the bye week on a roll, like we saw with the Arizona Cardinals. They'd won 4 in a row, and then all of a sudden they have to have that positive momentum stopped, and they come out on the other side, and what happens? They lose to Seattle. So I really like this situation. The Jets have a bye week come at a good time when they definitely need to reset and kind of look themselves in the mirror and figure out how they're going to right the ship going forward. And Seattle, like I said, that underdog outright going into road favorite. So yeah, and my numbers on top of all that, I made the Jets a 1.5 point favorite, and not that there's a ton of difference between 1.5 on either side of the zero. But when I crunch the numbers, they come out to about a 1.5 point favorite as well. So I did bet the Jets. Another one, the Bills is interesting because I believe Purdy won't play. And I think the numbers will tell you that the Bills would be about a 3.5 point, maybe 4 point favorite here. But without Purdy, and I believe also without Trent Williams and Nick Bosa, and weather, they're expecting some snow flurries possibly in Buffalo. I think all that amounts to about a 6 point swing in favor of the Bills. I thought this number would be like 9. Now it's 7. So it feels like the odds makers are kind of along the same lines of thinking that I am, but maybe they're protecting a little bit, backing off to 7 rather than going all the way to 8 or 9 or what have you. We will see, but I would expect that these players for San Francisco that did not play last week, I don't think they'll play again this week. And I think that number will probably get higher, if I'm guessing correctly. And then the Browns and the Broncos. You know, I made this number 5, but then when I crunch all the numbers, I come out to the Broncos by almost 10. And I believe that the numbers are a little bit skewed on Denver because they have played some weaker competition. They've feasted on weaker competition. But that defense is still pretty darn good. And the Browns are not very good. Certainly their numbers are not. And they got up for a division game on Thursday night last week. They've had a little extra rest. But that was an awful spot for Pittsburgh coming off of the Ravens game. The Browns, if the Browns couldn't win that game, then they can't beat anybody. Now it's back to reality here against a much better opponent. I think the Broncos may pull yet another win and cover off here on Monday night as well. So those were just some initial thoughts where some of my numbers and situations didn't necessarily match what the odds makers put up on Tuesday.
Well, as always, the scroll has been going the whole time. Everyone knows on Twitter to find you at Las Vegas Golfer or X, whatever we're calling it. But as we always end this part of the segment, Brady, tell them your sports grid schedule for today and, of course, the holiday weekend.
Yeah, I'll be on there a little later this evening at 7:30 Eastern Time, and then also on with our friends Gabe Morency and Cam Stewart at 10 p.m. Eastern. And then probably somewhere overnight is when the Las Vegas football contest show will drop. I'll certainly send that out on Twitter. It'll be on Sports Grid as well. And then, of course, over the weekend, this is the first, you talk about a gauntlet for Circus Survivor. I'm going to be running the gauntlet here myself. I will be doing all that Sports Grid work later today. I'm on Thanksgiving with Scott Wetzel from 12 noon Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern on Thanksgiving. Again, on Friday night, the day after Thanksgiving, and then on Saturday as well, 4:30. Let's see, what is it? No, 7:30 Eastern to 11 p.m. Whatever. I get mixed up on these time zones, being out on the West Coast here. But basically, I'm on Sports Grid for about the next 4 or 5 days in a row.
Well, Brady, tell the boys, tell Cam and Gabe that the East Coast says hello. We're going to wish you and your family nothing but the best on Thanksgiving. I'll be following you throughout the weekend, of course, on the Sports Grid.
Remember, guys, when you're watching football, eating turkey, we all have a great deal to be thankful about.
100%. Enjoy yourself, Brady. Catch up soon. The one and only Brady Kannon. Go follow him at Las Vegas Golfer. Ryan, quick commercial break. When we're back, the one and only Mr. Paul Stone. We'll be right back.
Jared, hey, we're going to need you to tone it down with the Summer Friday thing, okay?
What are you talking about?
Well, for one, it's not summer anymore.
Oh, really?
Coconut. Also, who is this?
I'm the caddy.
Oh, he's my intern.
Sorry, intern. I'm his intern.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
No golfing in the office, okay? Summer Fridays are over. You can keep the Hawaiian shirt, but the rest of this stuff, all right? Are you grilling?
Oh, yeah. Did you want a burger or a hot dog?
No, grilling in the office.
It's a good point. We should take this outside.
No, that don't. You put that right back down.
Yo, it's all in the hips.
Oh, dude, come on, we gotta go. Let's go.
Well, we are blessed and honored. Paul Stone usually comes on Thursdays at 11 o'clock. And it was funny. Last Thursday, I'm doing our show. I'm getting everyone prepped up for next Thursday, and my light bulb went on. I'm like, OMG. It's Thanksgiving, and I'm scrambling. Who's traveling Wednesday? Who's still going to be away on Friday? Paul has blessed us to come on early, a day early, to talk some college football. So without further ado, Mr. Paul Stone.
Yeah, glad to be with you, Jeffrey. I'll tell you, I thought my schedule was tough, and James Brown's not the hardest working man in show business. Brady Kannon is. Man, that guy, he's not going to have time to eat any turkey. That BK gets after it.
Oh, and yeah, I feel for him and the producers, because the producers will be reaching out. Hey, can you come on Thursday? Can you come on Friday? Oh, by the way, don't forget about Saturday. Keep your phone on silent, Paul, because they're going to be trying to grab you at all angles this weekend.
Yeah, well, I tell you, this is a great time of the year for sure, Jeffrey. A lot of meaningful football games, and college football, man, as wild, as wacky as it is every season, seems like even more so this year. There's just so much confusion and chaos, and going to be some tough decisions for that committee come another week or so.
You know, it's funny. I'm going to call myself a curse, because I was real quiet on Clemson after they lost their first game to Georgia. I gave them 4 or 5 weeks to start simmering. I bring their name up, they lose the next weekend. Well, I did the same about Ole Miss. I had kept them quiet. I'm like, And then next thing you know, we talk about them last week, and they were in the perfect spot, and everyone's like, Lane can't win the big one. But never. And listen, Florida had been playing better. The quarterback play has been better, obviously. And, of course, the vote of confidence for Napier, it was the perfect storm. I was shocked. Jackson Dart, those last 2 possessions, and I felt for the kid. He took ownership of it. Thoughts on the Rebels and laying the egg, no pun intended there, against Florida?
Yeah, really, really surprising. I mean, Florida has played much better under DJ Lagway, the true freshman from Willis, Texas, outside of Houston. He's a player, and they're a different team with him. They've gotten healthier and the Gators are not an easy out. But the Rebels, they were a team that I really thought in this wide open field might have a chance to win it, might be able to sneak in there and win a few games in the playoff. But as it stands now, outside of a miracle, they will not be there. This is a team heavily built on the transfer portal. And, I guess you could maybe point to that, but it seems like most teams have a lot of that in their program now. So, just a head scratcher. Jackson Dart there at the end of the game, he got a reprieve or two, and it seemed like he was throwing an interception every time he got his hands on the ball. And he's been very consistent and is taking care of the ball very well the last couple of years there in Oxford. Very low interception rate. So it was an outlier for him. That's not who he's been, but boy, it was a tough finish there, and it'll be interesting to see what that Ole Miss team will have in the tank for the Egg Bowl against rival Mississippi State.
The naysayers, of course, the committee strategically places Alabama one spot in front of Ole Miss, of course, another team that just absolutely spit the bit. We've seen flashes of Alabama and Coach DeBoer. They have a hiccup, then they show flashes. I mean, prior to last week, in comes Jalen Milroe scoring 4 touchdowns a game. An Oklahoma team that probably is the biggest mash unit in the country on both sides of the ball with injuries. A coach on the hottest of hot seats. And boy, I was trying to see, was Brian Bosworth playing? That defense for Oklahoma, hats off to the Sooners.
Yeah, they have gotten just a little bit healthier. They're awfully thin at that wide receiver position. But, the SEC is just a gauntlet. I mean, that's the difference between it and every other conference in the nation. Kentucky's won 1 game in that conference. They are 15th out of 16 teams. And they beat Ole Miss on the road by 3 points. They lost to Georgia at home by a point. There are no easy outs in that conference. I certainly didn't expect Alabama to go in. I necessarily expect them to cover in Norman. I think they closed 14-point favorite over the Sooners. But I certainly didn't expect them to lose. The way this Sooner team has been really challenged at the quarterback position and just in general offensively. But, man, they made some big plays, did the Sooners, and there's just it's such an interesting year in college football this year. I think it's a great year to have a 12-team playoff because there are no great teams. Everybody's got vulnerabilities. Everybody's got blemishes and warts. Everybody's beatable on any given Saturday, and I think it'll make for a great tournament when we get to that point.
We had Auburn first half against A&M. I really liked that spot for them. Up 21-7 at halftime. You blink and it's 21-21. Double, triple overtime game, quadruple overtime game. A game where if A&M had found a way to win, the game of the year would have been on Saturday. Texas A&M and Texas, in my eyes. I'm going to play what if, and I want your honest answer here. If A&M beats Texas, Texas will have 2 losses now, and then people are talking about the strength of schedule there. What does that do for Texas? And more importantly, what does that do for A&M if they can spring that upset?
Well, I'll say this. A&M, whether they beat Auburn last week or lost as they did, they're in the playoff if they make the SEC championship game. So I really don't think that outcome, certainly it took its toll physically and emotionally and all those ways and methods. But I think they needed to beat Texas regardless of what happened last week. And if you make the SEC championship game, and of course, this committee's really surprised me. I'm not a person who rails on the committee, but I've been very, very disappointed to this point. So anything's possible. But if you make the SEC championship game and don't get in the 12-team playoff, I mean, that would be very disheartening. So I think A&M's in if they win. And looking at all the different websites and so-called experts who project playoff probabilities, even if Texas loses, it looks like they'll be in the playoff. But I don't know how they come up with those projections, how they can get in the committee's collective mind. They might not be, because Texas has not played the most difficult of schedules. But I think if Texas is competitive and they lose to the Aggies, I would expect them to still be in the playoff as well.
And it's funny because you're right. You are rewarding teams to get to your conference championships, and someone's got to win and someone's got to lose. If you win, they slot you 1, 2, 3, 4 in the brackets for the second weekend. Well, if a team like A&M, all of a sudden, if they get to that championship and lose, then there is no way in holy hell that they can drop them out of this 12-team playoff.
You wouldn't think so. I mean, they'll be playing, if they were to make that game, they'd be playing the Georgia Bulldogs. And although Georgia might not be quite the team that they've been the previous 3 or so years, they're still one of the best when they're on top of their game. So, I can't imagine, if you make the Big Ten championship or the SEC championship, to me, those 4 teams are just in a wide open year should be pretty much automatic qualifiers.
I had my eyes on Kansas last week, and after the big win in Utah, BYU, they just seem to be clicking. In comes primetime, and in comes Shador and Travis Hunter. And the one thing that stuck in my craw, Paul, was the fact that they were playing at Arrowhead Stadium. They weren't playing on campus. Kansas kind of boxed to wired the Buffaloes, and Coach Prime, I thought, said it best. He's like, we were reading our own clippings. You started to believe what they were saying versus going out and try to win that game. Thoughts on the Buffaloes and, of course, the upstart Kansas Jayhawks now?
I tell you, Kansas is playing as well as anybody in the conference right now. We talked about the Big 12's balance at the beginning of the year, and it's done nothing to disappoint. Baylor, the team that they go to Waco this Saturday to play the Baylor Bears. Baylor, another team, really playing well. Dave Aranda has gotten another year, which I'm glad to see, one of the true good guys in the sport. But, Colorado, there are, I believe, I heard a representative of the Big 12 say, right now you've got the top 4 teams in that league in the Big 12 tied for first, 4 teams at 6-2. Another 5 teams, 1 game back at 5-3. So you've got 9 teams within 1 game of first place in the Big 12. I think a representative of the conference said yesterday, the day before, 278 possible scenarios. It was a little bit under 300, but it's crazy to make the championship game, different combination scenarios, so forth. So it is an insane conference. But I think Colorado, if I understand it correctly, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, if Arizona State and Iowa State win this weekend, win their games, Arizona State over Arizona and Iowa State over Kansas State, which neither one of those are a given, but Arizona State and Iowa State would be the 2 teams, I believe, in that championship game with if they do win their games. So Colorado was in, they controlled their own destiny, and with that defeat, now they don't control their own destiny. And who would have thought before the year that Colorado would be roughly a 17-point favorite over co-preseason favorite Oklahoma State? I mean, it's just a crazy, crazy league. And, 2 of the better teams, you would think, Oklahoma State and Utah down at the bottom. It's just been a crazy, crazy year in the Big 12. So probably need to expect more craziness on Saturday.
Notre Dame took care of business again against Army, this time at Yankee Stadium. They've manhandled Navy. They manhandled Army. Since that blip in the radar against Northern Illinois, it's been a playoff game every week, and they've taken care of business. Not an easy task, I'd say, against USC. Thoughts about that, and what happens if, again, Notre Dame loses to USC?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that might be one of the toughest calls there that the committee will have if they were to lose at USC this Saturday. USC has been very, very good as the betting underdog in recent seasons under Lincoln Riley. You would think Notre Dame, with the trajectory that the Irish are currently on, the way that they've been playing, really almost as well as anybody in the country, that they would go out there and take care of business. But you're on the road. Funny things happen. USC is certainly capable. They've got some talent. They've got Zachariah Branch, the return man from Las Vegas, who is a big-time player in the return game, as well as a wide receiver. So, it'll be interesting. I won't be involved on the side in that game. It's just too difficult of a handicap. But I guess it would be if I had to say yay or nay, should Notre Dame lose to Southern Cal, as damning as that week 2 loss was to Northern Illinois in week 2 as a 28-point favorite. And now you look at what Northern Illinois has done. They have a losing record in the MAC, and they beat Notre Dame in week 2. It's a really bad loss, but I still think if they were to be competitive and lose to USC by 7 or fewer points, that the brand, I think, even though they wouldn't say it, the brand's got something to do with it. I would think Notre Dame would still be in.
Lastly, for last week's games, I'm a numbers guy. I'm going to equate this to the New York Yankees, and the Yankees were 3 games back right around the All-Star break to Baltimore, and the books were real bullish on the Yankees. They had the Yankees winning the East. They had the Yankees winning the American League pennant, and I'm just scratching my head, and I trust and respect the Circa and a lot of my colleagues when it comes to numbers. They've been real bullish on this Ohio State team. Again, still the favorite to win it all here come January. A team that lost to Oregon, a team that's going to play Oregon again. They played Indiana last week. I've said to you week after week after week, I don't see a Justin Fields. I don't see a Marvin Harrison. I don't see a Zeke Elliott. I mean, the list is endless. I left that game saying, all right, when it came to both sides of the ball, it's just it's just business. It's just they're that tight on both sides. They're not flashy like they usually are, Paul. But I left saying, all right, you're right. They're the team to beat.
Yeah, I mean, I've said pretty much all along, especially the 21 out of the 22 positions, that Ohio State is the best team in the nation. And the difference on Saturday, I mean, Indiana had just a shade over 150 yards on the game, and that's after driving the ball 70 yards to score a touchdown on their opening drive. They didn't even average, I don't think, 2.5 yards a play against the Buckeyes. So that speaks to the toughness of that Buckeye defense. But the difference in the wild card is going to be the play of quarterback Will Howard. He has had ball handling issues historically from earlier during his days at Kansas State. And at times this year at Ohio State, threw 1 interception last week against Indiana, probably a bad decision. But other than that, he played clean football. And if Will Howard's playing clean football, he's a gamer, a tough guy. There's no question about it. He can run the football a little bit. If Will Howard's protecting the football and they're playing that good defense, which usually travels well, Ohio State, even though it's a wide open field, Ohio State is the cream of the crop, in my opinion, going in.
Last weekend, BC, Nebraska, both finally won. Both are now bowl eligible. Is there any certain teams that you got your eye on this weekend win and in and at least become bowl eligible, Paul?
Off the top of my head, I can't really think of anybody off the top of my head that I'm really looking at from a handicapping perspective. I don't know personally when you have that added motivation, if it's a blessing or a curse. I like to say Bill Shakespeare, that great college football handicapper, heavy is the head that wears the crown. He said that many years ago, I think. Not that I've read a whole lot of Shakespeare, but I use that on media appearances. So I think sometimes it's maybe more of a curse than a blessing to need to win, to have the that burden and that expectation. So nothing really comes to mind. I'm looking at some teams in the bowl season that I think might be live to bet, especially if they're underdogs. Certainly want to see how the opting out shakes out, because that's such a huge part of the bowl handicap is informational. You have to get that information, you have to use your instinct, and you have to make some decisions early. And sometimes you get burned, sometimes you get the best of it. So it's a different, we all know with the transfer portal, with NIL, with all the conference realignment, college football from a handicapping perspective and all perspectives is just a never always changing, never ending process.
Ryan, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, Paul, I'm going to give you the center stage to break down 3 games that you would like to break down this weekend. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. This time of the show, Paul, we give you that nice little 7.5-yard button hook, and the stage is yours.
All righty. Well, Jeff, we're going to start Friday, this Friday, the 29th of November, the day after Thanksgiving. Conference USA game in Huntsville, Texas, about 65 miles north of Houston. This game between preseason conference favorite Liberty and Sam Houston, only in their second year of FBS membership. The winner of this game will get at least a share of second place and could get second place outright in Conference USA if Western Kentucky loses at home to undefeated in conference anyway, Jacksonville State, that will be the first place team in the regular season. You know, Sam Houston, I think they're going to be, you know, they'll be ecstatic if they're able to finish or get a share of second place in Conference USA. As I mentioned, only their second year of FBS membership. You know, they're going to have all hands on deck this game on Friday. For Liberty, though, not so much. You know, this is a team, I think their mantra and their feeling going into the season had to be, you know, make the college football playoff or bust. You know, last year they played in a New Year's Six Bowl, didn't show well against Oregon, but they were in a New Year's Six Bowl, so that was a big deal. This year, with their quarterback, Caden Salter, returning, a standout quarterback, and a host of other key performers, you know, Liberty really, you know, I looked at that schedule and I thought, man, they're going to win all their games against arguably the easiest schedule in college football. They'll win their conference championship game. They'll be 13-0, and the committee will have, you know, a hard decision to make for that group of 5 entry largely based on Liberty's very, very easy schedule. But it hadn't worked out that way. Liberty's stubbed their toe a couple of times, so they don't have the prospect of being in that college football playoff on the table anymore. You look at this game in Huntsville on Friday. If you'll remember last year in early October, Sam Houston travels to Liberty as a 21.5-point favorite, and the Flames were rolling at that point. They go into Lynchburg, Virginia. They trail 21-16 in the fourth quarter. They get the ball on their own 1-yard line in the final minutes. They drive 96 yards, and they've got first and goal from the Liberty 3. They're down 5. They need a touchdown to win. 4 straight incompletions, though. Liberty escapes 21-16. Excuse me. Sam Houston remembers that game. They also have the confidence they can compete with Liberty. I think Sam Houston's going to win on Friday. I like Sam Houston +5 over Liberty. We're going to go to the get a quick drink here. We're going to go to College Station on Saturday night, one of the bigger games, if not the biggest of the entire weekend. Texas and Texas A&M renewed their rivalry after 13 years of not meeting on the football field. The atmosphere at Kyle Field will be next level Saturday night. They're bringing in speakers and putting them on the sidelines. I don't know if they're amplifying the natural noise or what they're going to do with those speakers. I know Steve Sarkisian, the Texas coach, has indicated they can't play them when we're trying to, you know, run a play based on the conference rules. So we'll see how that pans out. That might be like those cowbells that Mississippi State, you know, likes to use. Those have been outlawed too, but I still hear them every game. So we'll see what the deal is with these speakers. I'm sure it's going to be, I think it's going to be a point of contention at the game, but it's going to be crazy in College Station. But I like the Aggies here, and there's several reasons I like the Aggies. First of all, the Longhorns offense hadn't been nearly as explosive in the second half of the season as it was in the first. Quinn Ewers in his last 2 games against Arkansas this past weekend against Kentucky, he's thrown for fewer than 200 yards in both those games. If the Longhorns, if they aren't able to go stretch the field a little bit in the vertical passing game and push the ball down the field through the air. They don't have a great running game against the championship defense. Texas does not. In Texas A&M up front, that is championship caliber, big-time defensive football. They've got Nick Scourton, the defensive end. He had 12 or 14 rather tackles for loss this year so far, 5 sacks. Might be a top 10 pick in the draft come April. Got a defensive tackle in Shamar Turner, another Shamar Stewart, defensive end. NFL guys all over that front. Texas, I don't think is going to be able to run the ball really effectively. Texas, again, everything points to them still making the playoffs with a loss. Texas A&M obviously needs to win to have a shot at the playoff. The Aggies, again, they're at home. It's going to be a very raucous environment. The Longhorns have been far from invincible the last month of the season. I like Texas A&M +5 to defeat the Longhorns. Not only cover, but defeat the Longhorns. Then we're going to go to the Palmetto State. South Carolina at Clemson, and as big as that Texas A&M Texas game is, and some of the others, Ohio State, Michigan, so forth and so on, this game to me is one of the more intriguing games on the entire slate in a very, again, deep slate of games. A win by Clemson would keep the Tigers clearly in the 12-team playoff hunt. 3-loss South Carolina, all the projections show that they'll be on the outside looking in regardless of what happens. And that's kind of a shame. I'm not saying they should necessarily be in because they have lost 3 games, but I'll guarantee you nobody would be lining up to play the Gamecocks if they were in that tournament. Nobody would want to play them. 2 of their losses by 3 points or fewer, those being to LSU and Alabama. I think they kind of got hosed in the loss to LSU. And then at Alabama, they lost that game by 3 points, but they could have very easily won that game. Could have gone either way. A very tightly contested game. The Gamecocks, they entered this game against Clemson on a 5-game winning streak. Really been playing well, and much of the reason for their recent winning ways is the development of the redshirt freshman quarterback Lenora Sellers. He's a guy who's 6'3", 240, 250 pounds. You don't want to get in his way. I know that Coach Prime, back in his playing days, would say, you have to make business decisions sometimes. And I think people have to make business decisions when Lenora Sellers starts running that football up the field because he is a big boy. Sellers, he's thrown for 2,110 yards, rushed for another 489, and he hadn't thrown an interception in his last 3 games. So no interceptions at all. He's got 11 games under his belt. He's no longer really a freshman. He has some experience. You look at Clemson this year, they've mostly mopped the floor against inferior opponents on their schedule. That's when they've been at their best. They've only played 2 teams this year in Jeff Sagrin's current top 30 in his power ratings. Those teams being Georgia and Louisville. Lost both those games by a grand total of 43 points. So not competitive in either. Clemson's won 8 of the past 9 meetings in this series, but I think South Carolina is going to go into Death Valley and get a victory on Saturday. Give me South Carolina +2.5 over Dabo and Clemson.
Great eyes there. I definitely will be on all 3 of them. My eyes will be glued on A&M. I think I know the heartbreak and the loss and the overtimes, but to come back home with this opportunity, I don't want to say Texas is due for a clunker, but as you said, they're positionally set up pretty well. Even with a loss, they should stay in the conference, the final 12 at least, my point there. And then it gives A&M that one last swing in the title game against Georgia, winning in. So great stuff as always. The scroll has been going the whole time, Paul. Everyone knows they can follow you on X at Paul Stone Sports, but we always wrap this segment here. Tell them where they can also find your work and your website.
Yeah, if you want to take your interest to another level, I have a website. You can see my products there, paulstonesports.org. Again, that's paulstonesports.org. And just wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody's spending it with family, friends, people that you like, and just enjoy your time. Hope everybody gets to watch a little football. And if you partake, perhaps cash a few tickets.
Paul, we're blessed and honored to have you. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for stepping up here on Wednesday, and we will see you back at your normal spot next week on Thursday. How's that?
Good deal. Sounds good, Jeff. Have a happy Thanksgiving and safe travels to everyone.
All right, you too as well. Paul Stone, go follow him at Paul Stone Sports. Ryan, quick commercial break, and we'll wrap it up.
Jared, hey, we're going to need you to tone it down with the Summer Friday thing, okay?
What are you talking about?
Well, for one, it's not summer anymore.
Oh, really?
Coconut. Also, who is this?
I'm the caddy.
Oh, he's my intern.
Sorry, intern. I'm his intern.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
No golfing in the office, okay? Summer Fridays are over. You can keep the Hawaiian shirt, but the rest of this stuff, all right? Are you grilling?
Oh, yeah. Did you want a burger or a hot dog?
No, grilling in the office.
That's a good point. We should take this outside.
No, that don't. You put that right back down.
Yo, it's all in the hips.
Oh, dude, come on, we gotta go. Let's go.
I want to thank Paul Stone for coming on a day early to break down college football like no other. Brady Kannon, who's got a gauntlet of a schedule coming up starting today on Sports Grid. Tough to be in these lanes in this business during the holidays because you get called upon a lot. And as Brady said, I'll be working Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for Sports Grid. So, of course, go follow him there. A shout out to Ryan Shanklin, the man behind the glass, the man on break, making it here today. We couldn't have done it without you. Myself and Riley Magnuson are shooting for 5 o'clock to do a closing bell. Will be our last show until Friday when the NCAA insiders come back at 11 a.m. and around 11:35. Adam Trigger will be back to talk some college football. I want everyone to remember what Thanksgiving's all about, to be grateful, to show some gratitude. It's not easy because, we always, for me, bitch, yell, scream, holler, complain. And when I look at myself in the mirror and I see what I have versus what I want, it's a good reality slap. There's a million people so much less off, that don't have a family or a place to go to for Thanksgiving tomorrow, that don't have the means to put together this huge feast, that are just worried to keep the lights on, to keep the heat on, or some of the cities and towns down south that were destroyed by the hurricane season. So again, maybe before we get to the family festivities, take a deep breath. For me, a lot of times I will count to 10 before I answer the question. So again, shout out to Brady Kannon, Paul Stone, Ryan Shanklin, Richard Poplis. It wasn't a good Maui tournament for our Yukon Huskies. My 2 cents on this is you're 2-time defending champs. Act like you've been there before. Dan, I love you to death. I know you're passionate. You need to take a step back. You already got a bullseye on your front chest as well as the team. You lost in overtime, and you just lost at the buzzer to Colorado yesterday. Take care of business today, Dayton. Get the hell back to stores and get ready for your next gauntlet of games before we start conference play. Everyone else here, have a blessed day. I hope to be back around 5 o'clock. Enjoy yourselves, and we will see you soon.